Welcome, guys, to the Brand Identity Design Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and I am with Carla Howard, my guest who you see next to me right now. I'm very, very thrilled to have this conversation on becoming the five-figure speaker. A very exciting topic. Very curious to know a lot of things which you can actually learn from Carla from this conversation. Thank you so much, Carla, for joining us. I want to let you guys know that I'm actually doing this series called as the dark side of entrepreneurship, and the whole aim of my show or my podcast is to educate more entrepreneurs who are listening, to share ideas, recommend strategies on how to deal with adversities while running your business, how to have an additional income stream, how to problem solve things, how to make money, how to become rich. And I do this by interviewing high-level business executives who are willing to share their personal and professional experience with my listeners. Just in case if you're new to this live, which I'm doing over LinkedIn, my podcast is heard in over 23 countries and currently ranks on Spotify at the top 30% most followed business podcast. And additionally, my podcast has also been awarded as the winner of the Anchor Spotlight Awards by Spotify for Jan 2023, recognizing its excellence and contribution to the podcasting industry. I assure you this won't be just another boring business talk show which you generally hear over LinkedIn. We will have something really exciting, so be ready to relax. Sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and learn with us, because we will be injecting a healthy dose of humor and personality to this mix while you learn about entrepreneurship through my show. I want to actually quickly give a shout out to my first sponsor. I want to just highlight and let you guys know sponsorship is a medium how we reduce or compensate some of the expenses when it comes to the production expenses to conduct the show and stuff like that. So I want to give a shout out to Elliot K. He has been my first guest on season 4. So Elliot K is a well-known business coach, speaker, author based out in UK with over 2 decades of experience in coaching and mentoring entrepreneurs. So they have actually come up with an alert service. It's called as Gig Getters Alert Service. I'm going to actually play the recording which he has sent to me so that you guys know what the service is and how it serves and helps people.
Do you want speaking opportunities delivered to your inbox daily? Do you want to cut out all that time searching for speaking opportunities so you can simply apply and spread your message globally? If you've answered yes to any of those questions, join the Gig Getters Alert Service today, where we'll email you speaking opportunities, virtual or live, from across the world so you can apply, you can be seen, you can get paid to speak today. Join the Gig Getters Alert Service today so we can support you to not only be a great speaker, but to speak your greatness and spread your message globally. Join us today.
All right, so that is actually Elliot, the one which you heard this audio from. So if you are interested in finding out speaking opportunities, I know it's tough. Do not worry where to start, where to begin. Take advantage of this Gig Getters Alert Service. It's a one-of-a-kind solution to help you find speaking opportunities across the world. I think the subscription fee is $9.99 per month, or you can go for a lifetime deal for £97. Yeah, so the currency is actually in pounds. You should be able to find this under the event description or the event notes for this specific event. So I don't want to bore you guys with too much details now. So let's actually get into this conversation which we're going to have. So we're going to be speaking about how to become a five-figure speaker. Thank you so much for joining us for this special podcast. Featuring my guest Carla Howard. She would share her journey from how she became a five-figure speaker, and get valuable insights from her on developing your unique voice, building your speaking brand, handling challenges along the way. You'll be learning a lot of tips on audience engagement, pricing, negotiation, stuff like that. It's going to be really interesting. Now, something really I like about Carla is how she addresses herself. She calls herself as a dream enabler. And you may have seen this on the flyer, which I have posted on LinkedIn and other platforms. So she is a dream enabler, a strategic change consultant, a professional speaker. And the thread that runs through her work is the love of personal and business transformation, whether helping corporations manage change, delivering keynotes, teaching emerging speakers, get paid from the stage, and helping kind and ambitious women realize what is possible. Carla helps people move from where they are today and where they want to be in the future. I just want to personally thank Carla. Thank you so much, Carla, for joining this conversation. Thank you so much
Oh
for
gosh,
being here.
thank you. I'm so excited, Jason, and I shared with you in our text messages on WhatsApp in the background. You are by far the most prepared host I have ever been on a show for. So I appreciate your diligence, your research, and your prep as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate you sending those messages. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. I also want to thank all the 28 listeners who are listening to us live on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your love. I see a lot of my close friends who have also participated and joined this conversation. I want to give a shout out especially to Leslie and Phyllis. I also see Neeta, who is also a regular listener on my show. Just in case, guys, if I'm missing out on anyone, please do not worry. I do acknowledge the people who come to my show regularly. I want to give a special mention to somebody whom you see down in the audience. His name is Zach Sandler. He's a very, very close friend of mine, and he's also an amazing speaker. Just recently finished his TED Talk. So, Zach, so nice to see you. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Let's dive in, because people here for the meaty side, the juicy side of our conversation. So, Carla, my first question to you is what specific steps did you take to transition from being a novice speaker to achieving like a five-figure income? And the second question I have, the part two of this, question I have is additionally, how do you define what is a five-figure speaker? What specific qualities, skills do you believe are necessary to attain that level of success in the speaking industry?
Okay, perfect. I love that. So I'll start with the first question, which are the specific steps I took to transition from being a novice speaker to, being able to charge five figures for speaking on a stage. And so it's really about honing that art, the craft of engaging an audience. And there's a couple of different ways to do that. So the first thing I would say is really, really important to understand who is the niche that you want to attract. So by that I mean think about what is your platform? What is it that you're going to speak about or that you're currently speaking about, and who is that ideal audience? I always leave my audience with something that is going to transform their lives. So that may be in their personal life, it may be in their business life, and it's really important to make that actionable. Because if you think back to talks that you may have listened to, maybe it was felt influencing or it felt motivational in the moment, but then when you left, you really weren't sure exactly what it is you needed to do in order to make that transformation reality in your own life. So getting really specific about what's going to transform their experience in their lives. And then couple of things, getting, I always say, miles under your sneakers. So what do I mean by that? Go to Toastmasters, volunteer to speak at events, volunteer to speak and share information on behalf of your team or at a company event, and then apply to be a breakout speaker at a conference or an event that you're attending, really honing that art of being on stage. And then the last thing, and this this sounds like a small thing, but it really is a big thing, and that is to start calling yourself a professional speaker. I know so many people who shy away from that because they don't feel like they can claim that title until, and you can fill in that until bucket, until I make $1,000 for a speaking engagement, until I've had X number of speaking engagements. So start calling yourself a professional speaker, because until you do that, people who are looking for speakers are not going to take you seriously when they start thinking about who they want to put on stage or in a workshop to add value to their community. So I'm going to pause there, Jason, before I talk about how I would define a five-figure speaker, and then what qualities they need to have. Any questions for me around that transition?
This is pretty cool. So you said you need to know what is your niche, and you also need to be very clear as to what you're speaking about. And you also encourage people go to Toastmasters, right, regularly, get into more speaking engagements, and do not hesitate to call yourself as a professional speaker. So far I'm really excited because I would like to know more, like, now answer the second question. How would you define a five-figure speaker, and what specific qualities or skills do you believe is necessary to attain that level of success in the speaking industry? Let's hear that.
Yeah, so a couple of things, really honing the art of speaking. And it is an art, and we can do that through reading about, speaking tactics and watching other speakers to begin that journey. To really be a great speaker, you've got to do the speaking. So you've got to get on stages, get in front of as many audience as you can, especially in the beginning. And then focus very, very myopically on connecting with the audience. So for me, there's a big difference between a speaker when I go to a conference who stands on stage and speaks at me, and someone who I feel like is connected with me. They're making eye contact, they're asking questions of the audience, they're engaging me in a way that feels intimate and special. And the highest paid speakers are going to do this incredibly well. So they connect to their audience through the words that they use, their mannerisms, asking for feedback, whether they're raising a hand or they're using an app to input their feedback. And then the other thing, five-figure speakers are really good at, and that is taking really good care of your event organizer. If you think about it, your event organizer has brought you in, and this is a huge risk point for them. Their reputation and their career rely on you doing a great job. And if they are bringing you in, having never seen you speak from the stage or hearing that you're a great speaker, making them look good and keeping them updated throughout the process is critical. And that extends to their staff as well. So being kind and thoughtful, always meeting deadlines, doing the small things like when I go to an event, if I'm traveling, I get on the plane, I'm flying to an event, I'll text my event organizer and say, hey, just letting you know, I'm jumping on the plane. Really looking forward to the event tomorrow. When I get to my hotel room, I'll say, arrived at the hotel room. I've scoped out where the conference is. I'll see you first thing in the morning. You don't want your event organizer sitting there worrying about, did you get on the plane? Do you know where to be in the morning? They've got enough to take care of. So really focusing on connecting, taking care of the audience, always offering a transformation. That is number one. Five-figure speakers offer their audience some kind of a transformation. And then really taking excellent care of your event organizers and making them look good. That's going to make you referable by your event organizer, and it's going to make them want to call you back to support them again.
Those are some very, very incredible points which you made, Carla, especially the one wherein you spoke about, making it easy for the event organizer. I actually never thought of it, and I'm sure many of the people who are listening to this conversation would care much. Okay, but it's such an integral part, and when you were actually explaining it, what it actually indicates, what it's trying to tell me is that they have a busy job. They are trying to keep a track of so many individuals who are speakers. They have so many functions which they are taking care of. Now, if you as a speaker who is participating on this event, if you're being proactive, keeping them in the loop as to what's happening, where I'm at, it is one less thing to be worried about, right? And
Yes.
less stress. Okay, now, I get this. Okay, now did you learn this the hard way? Did you had an experience? Okay, let's hear that. What was the
Well, I
experience?
learned everything the hard way, Jason. I always joke. So we'll get into this later, but I have a program called Get Paid from the Stage where I teach emerging speakers and speakers who have not been getting paid for the value they deliver. And maybe they're, doing work for events that is, I'll say that a lot of times, you'll hear this to do it for exposure, come speak for us for exposure or for low pay. And everything in the program I have learned through just mistakes, right? So, yeah, I mean, I never thought about how important it was to keep my event organizers in the loop until I was at a speaking engagement. And, I'm getting ready in the morning and I'm getting ready to go downstairs for the event. And I get a text from the event organizer. And she said, "Hey, Carla, I haven't heard from you. Just want to make sure you made it here." And I thought, oh my gosh, like I could have so alleviated that stress from her by simply being proactive and saying, "Hey, I'm at the airport on the way. Arrived at the hotel. I've scoped out my meeting room. I'm good to go." And so, these are the things that leave a lasting impression because we're thinking about other people and what success looks like for them. So, yes, I did get that text. And it really drove me to think even more deeply about how else can I really serve that event organizer that's gone out on a limb to bring me in and speak to her audience, his or her audience.
That makes total sense. And I love the part which you said you need to deeply connect with your audience, take feedback from them, and do offer them some sort of transformation. I had another interesting person who I had interviewed, the one which you heard the ad which I played. He said that
Yes.
when we speak about transformation, I think I remember on this episode he said that when you're getting paid to speak, and if you're getting paid so much, you need to ensure that you offer them solutions like results, like this is how it is supposed to be done and stuff like that. So I hear what you're saying, and I totally, agree with you. Let's actually move on to the pricing part. Because I think a lot of people actually struggle with this. How do you determine your value as a speaker when it comes to pricing your services, and what advice would you give to speakers who struggle with pricing themselves appropriately to ensure there is a fair compensation for their expertise and contribution?
This is such a great question, and I have so much to share on this topic. So I'm going to try to hone it down to the most important nuggets. The first thing I'm going to share is I am a huge fan of charging a day rate. So I do not have a different price for a 1 hour keynote versus an hour and a half keynote versus a 4 day or 4 hour workshop at your event. I am a day rate. And the reason for that is if I'm working for you, that is all I'm going to be doing that day. I'm getting up in the morning, whether it's at home or I'm at if I've flown out of town and I'm in the hotel room getting ready. I have you and your audience on my mind. I am completely focused on what success looks like for you. I'm going to be there for the day, basically, right? Because I'm going to arrive early and this is my job for today. And the nice thing about that is it gives event organizers the opening and the opportunity to use me in a variety of ways. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I'm the opening keynote. So I arrive early, I do my 1 hour keynote, I leave the stage. You bet I'm already there. Am I going to network? Oh, yes, I am. I am going to connect. I'm going to go to the lunches. I'm going to attend other events because I want to have those side conversations where we drive a little bit deeper into that value for anyone that's struggling with that transformation I've offered up. And this is where other people will say, "Oh man, we're having this event. I would love to have you come speak to us." And you begin to network and plant the seeds for how you can support that next event. The other thing is, I'm there for the day. So if you want me to moderate a panel, I am happy to do that. If you want me to be on the panel, I'm happy to do that. If you're doing a tabletop exercise and you need a facilitator, I'm happy to do that. And I charge a fee that allows me to do that. So I am knocking on the door of 5 figures for a speaking engagement. Right now, if I leave home US dollars, my speaking fee is $9,500 plus travel. If I'm local, it's a little bit less. Later this year, that price is going to go up to $11,000 when I'm traveling. My event organizer can use me in a variety of ways that bring her more value, her or him, and bring me more value because I'm making those deep connections. So that's why I love a day rate. Now, I also want to talk about how much to charge, and I'm going to share with you what these dollar amounts say to an event organizer. If I'm on the phone with an event organizer and I give him or her a price between $1,500 and $2,000 for a keynote or a workshop, they're going to walk away believing, whether it's true or not, I'm an amateur. I'm a new speaker, probably have less than 15 or 20 gigs, and I'm a risk. They will not have the confidence that I'm going to deliver a quality talk and I know how to take care of their audience. If I come in at a price $5,000 to $8,000, they're going to look at me as, okay, I'm a professional speaker. I've got some miles under my sneakers. I've probably spoken to a variety of crowds, and I'm not a high risk. I have the experience to handle a variety of groups. But I'm not at the very, tippy top. And we're not talking Brene Brown here level speaker. If I'm coming in close to 15,000, they know that I'm an experienced speaker. I've spoken at over 100 gigs. I might be a published author. I'm on high demand and probably not going to negotiate much on my pricing. And it's just the psychology. So what I recommend is the lowest you go in is that $5,000 mark. Because remember, that says you're a professional speaker. You've got some experience, some miles under your sneakers. You've got a portfolio of gigs and you're not a risk. People are afraid to like say, this is what I charge. And I can give you some tips on how to get comfortable with that in a moment. But what you tell people your speaking fee is tells them a lot about your experience as a speaker. Questions about that,
Yeah,
Jason?
this is super interesting, and I really like the strategy which you recommended right now. I have a concern though. Now, let's say that somebody hones in on, let's say, this amount of, let's say, $5,000. Okay, and let's say that they end up getting an opportunity and they end up speaking and delivering it. What if the next opportunity which presents itself doesn't really necessarily have the same budget as what you
Mm-hmm.
were offered? So in that case, would you have like a separate pricing model for each gig which you get? Like, how do you go about that? If you get my question, like.
I do. And it's a great question. And I'm going to give you an answer that some speakers would tell you is not a great answer. And it has served me incredibly well. So I want to talk a little bit about the value of the speaking engagement first. And the thing that I want the speakers on this podcast call to remember is this. You're not getting paid $5,000 for an hour. That's not what's happening. When you get paid $5,000, it's for the lifetime of experience that you have put into honing and learning your craft and your message. It is for having thoughtful content. It is the time and energy you've spent into becoming an excellent speaker that knows how to motivate and connect with an audience. People get all wrapped up in their heads about how can I charge $5,000 for an hour? You're not. You're charging for your deep expertise, the time that you have spent, and the value that you are delivering. That's why you're always going to deliver a transformation. Now, on the pricing side, do I ever change that pricing? I do. And I decide what makes sense for me. And I do that in a couple of ways. So I'm going to talk about price and then I'm going to talk about additional value. I'll give you a perfect example. I had someone last week reach out to me. My heart and passion is, in addition to leading change, so I lead change in our journey management product line for Align.org. which is the change implementation on the back end of org redesign. Love that work, super passionate about it. And I love helping kind and ambitious women live their dream lives. So this organization reached out. It is a women's organization. They have a conference coming in February. It is in my hometown in Phoenix. She asked me my rates. I shared them, knowing that it was probably beyond their reach. And when she confirmed that, I said, listen, um, this is my target audience. This is where my heart is. Talk to me about what you think the board will approve, because you're right down the road from me. Let's see if we can make this work. Um, she said, I might be able to get 1,000. And I said, I will do it if you can hit 1,000 or north of that. Below 1,000, I just can't do it. The other thing, though, is I will ask for additional value. And what do I mean by that? There's so much more value that you can pull as a speaker. So if I land this gig for $1,000 in my hometown, I'm going to ask for high quality pictures that are taken at the event. I'm going to ask them to give me a review on LinkedIn. That is worth a lot to me. I am going to connect with people at the event. And when the participants come to me and say it was a great event, I'm going to ask them to give me a review. I want you to think about not only what is the dollar amount that you're getting, but what's the additional value you can obtain in lieu of that price point if they don't have it. If you see someone walking around with a video camera, ask for the video footage, because you can use that on your website. You can create snippets for your social media platforms, and you can use it to create a speaking reel. So the dollar amount is one value, and then that additional value that you can secure from the event, don't forget to look at and think about that.
This is super cool. So what you're saying that even if you're getting paid low, and let's say that you do say to a project at a lower price point, but you would want to be compensated through other mediums. And I like this strategy because we as designers, we also kind of use the same strategy. So you like high quality pictures, videos, so that you can have your speaker reel, or have some social media things which you can post. This is really cool. You said, ask them for a LinkedIn review. So if the organizers end up giving you a review, that has a much more impact, especially if they do a review on LinkedIn, recommendations, stuff like that. And asking participants to review, that also adds up a lot of things to your testimonial. So this is super, super interesting points which you have shared. So if I reflect back on my notes, you did mention about charging a day rate, right? And you also
Yes.
mentioned that the reason why you're charging a day rate is because you would end up networking, and you can utilize your time to help the organizers out, to moderate the event, to facilitate some of the things, so you can be a helpful hand. And this leaves a very positive impression in front of the organizers. So next time, if they were to look for a speaker, you would be in top of their mind that we need to have you. Definitely, we need to have definitely Carla with us. I like what you said about pricing. This is super, super cool. Is there anything else you feel about pricing you feel the audience should be aware of?
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls I see newer speakers making is doing this, parking meter pricing. Imagine, if you will, you pull up to a parking meter and it's $1 for an hour, it's $1.50 for 2 hours, it's $3 for a half day, and you're standing there at the meter going, I don't know how long I'm going to be gone, I don't know what I need, trying to figure out, what's the most economical way that you can put money in the parking meter. You don't want to be an economical choice. You want to be a value choice. And that's why this day rate is so important. Um, you're charging for value. This is not parking meter pricing. And so stick to that day rate value. The other thing, and I love this exercise so much, when people tell me, oh, I don't think I can save $5,000, Carla. I love this exercise, and I'm going to ask you all to do this. Whether you're asking for a raise, you're talking about your speaking and workshop pricing, or some other product or service that you sell. I want you to sit down, get out a sticky note, and put the price. So for me, it would be make it up, right? Keynote, $12,000. Put it on the table, get out a salt shaker and a pepper shaker. And every morning for a week for 5 minutes, sounds ridiculous, but hang with me. I want you to point at the salt and say, that's salt. Point at the pepper and say, that's pepper. Point at your sticky and say, and my keynotes are $12,000. My keynotes are $12,000. That's salt and that's pepper, because it becomes a fact. When you are cooking in the kitchen, salt isn't salt unless you need paprika. Salt isn't salt unless you need cumin for your dish. It is salt. It is always salt. And your value, your speaking fee is always $12,000. Will you negotiate? Yes, good chance that you will. And when you do, use this language so that you don't devalue your work. My speaking fee is $12,000. I'm understanding that's not within your budget. Let's talk about some other value that we could agree that you can contribute so that I can lower my price to something that meets your budget and I can retain the value I need to retain from this engagement. And then start walking through it. Do you have referrals you could send to me? Are there people you could connect me with? Are you going to have a videographer there? That would be highly valuable to me. So you're not lowering your value proposition. You are allowing some wiggle room so that you can negotiate a deal that is going to be good for the both of you.
That is super super cool advice, and I loved everything which you shared. But audience, if you're listening to this conversation and if you're understanding what we are trying to say, please do not think that it's about you randomly just pitching 5,000, 10,000, or 12,000. That's not what she's trying to say. I think what Carla is trying to say is that you want to get paid for the experience and the expertise and the value you deliver in a speech. So that takes time. So you need to hone your craft, ensure that your skills are up to that scale and level that you can leverage that pricing, and not leverage, in fact demand that pricing. Now, what I'm wondering, see, as entrepreneurs, we have this highs and lows, like we go through things, right, in life. So the journey as a 5-figure speaker, I'm assuming, may have its highs and lows. So can you describe a moment or probably a situation where you doubted yourself or faced any sort of major obstacles? So I'd like to know that how did you overcome it to achieve, remarkable success in your speaking career?
There's so many. I think speakers generally doubt themselves a lot. I know I do. Every time I'm practicing for my next event, and I practice like crazy, I always have that moment where my heart races and I start thinking, oh my gosh, I hope this one goes well, right? Like it's part of standing on the stage and delivering. I'll share with you a failure that I had early on in asking for a higher amount of money. It was for the Association of Travel Executives. I had submitted a call for speakers, talked to the event organizer. I was so excited about this one. So it was my first big paid, potentially big paid speaking engagement. They were very interested. It was in New York. And when they asked what my speaking fee was going to be, I took a deep breath and I said $5,000. And the organizer said, oh, yeah, that's within our budget. So right away I'm thinking, oh, what should I have said then? Right? Because that was a quick yes. And of course, I realized later that price was way too low for the value and the work that I was going to have to do to deliver, but that's okay. I would have been happy to do it. She said she'd get back to me in a few weeks. I was excited. I just knew I was going to book this gig and I didn't get it. So I reached back out to her and I said, it would really help me if we could jump on a call so I could understand what was the thing, that kept you from being able to say yes to me and choosing another speaker so that I can grow in my speaker's journey. And we got on a call and she said, I really wanted to hire you. I feel like your topic is right. Your approach is right. When I presented it to the committee, though, they just couldn't get past the fact that you don't have a speaker's reel. And if you would have had a speaker's reel, we would have been able to close the deal. And I said, okay, that is super helpful. That's going to be the thing that I work on next week. Thank you so much for your feedback. And I immediately got off the phone and Googled what is a speaker reel. I literally had no idea. And then when I saw, okay, yeah, it's a little sneak preview of your talk, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I've seen other speakers that have these speaker reels or sizzle reels, and I understand why a committee would want to see that, right? And so I couldn't really get it done the next week, but I started creating a plan for it. And within about 6 months, I did have a speaker's reel, and now I have several. So, that was a fail where I missed out on $5,000. And I will say the learning from that by reaching out to the event organizer and understanding that strategy of choosing someone else was worth way more than $5,000 to me, because it gave me some actionable advice then that I could take forward while I was building my speaking business.
I really love this because many speakers underestimate the power of a sizzle reel or a speaker reel. But I have noticed many professional speakers, such as yourself, and many others who I interviewed on my show, they all have their speaker reel. And whenever you ask them to send their bio out, they do send that clip or video out. I completely understand where you're coming from, and so that's actually a big hit, losing 5,000. But at the end of the day, you learn something that it's important to have speaker reels. So Carla, let me ask you that. Let's say that somebody who's just starting up, and let's say that it's not a heavily paid gig. Let's say the production value is also not too great. They don't really have in-house videographers or photographers. Do you encourage people, just in case if the production, the organizer does not have that kind of production limit, do you encourage people to have their own photographer or videographer participate in the show so that you can get all this content and make a reel or something of that sort by yourself?
I do. And really important, you don't want to do that unless you get approval from the event organizer in advance. Some will not allow that. Others will say, yes, you can, but you can't have any identifiable faces in the video. Others will allow you to have your videographer there. I have a speaker's reel that has testimonials on the back end by participants, and they had to sign a waiver. So you just want to approach that carefully. One of the participants in the Get Paid from the Stage program had a event directly in the middle of our program, actually, and she just had her husband come with a decent video camera, and he filmed it in such a way that you only saw the backs of people's heads, and she created a speaker reel off of that. Is it, it's not going to stand up, and mine don't either, by the way, to like the likes of a Brene Brown. And as long as you've got a speaker reel to start with, you can improve from there. So my answer is yes, with the caveat that you have to get all of the permissions in advance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And remember, guys, whenever you actually record people, you need to have release forms and stuff like that to ensure that everything goes in harmony and you don't have pushbacks, stuff like that. So that's some great tips. So, before we actually move on to the next question, Carla, guys, shout out to Carla because she just finished a meeting and she immediately joined our show. So, shout out to her. So, why don't you grab some beverage? I'm going to play an ad. I want to give a shout out to my next sponsor. Her name is Dr. Amanda. She's an amazing individual. So, hear this out.
Do you want to find out how your neurology works? Do you want to understand why you do what you do? Then it's really simple. Just check out yourlifeliveit.com, and there you'll find lots of different ways for you to be able to learn more about you, why you do the things you do, and more importantly, how to change those in a really quick, effective way. We call it unthinkable change. The change that you'll experience with neural coding is fast and it lasts. Don't wait anymore. You get 86,400 seconds every day. Once it's gone, it's gone. We are committed and passionate about helping people create unthinkable change in their lives. We've been doing this since 2008 and literally changed over 41,000 problems, deleted them from the neurology, and then installed a solution that works best for the client. Whether you want to work one-on-one or take one of our award-winning neural coding online courses, Take action today. The costs of not doing that are just more days wasted. So connect with us. We're here to help. We're here to help you create unthinkable change that's fast and it lasts. It's your life. Live it.
That's actually Dr. Amanda, a lovely, incredible sponsor for my show. I wanted to personally say that, Dr. Amanda is an international speaker. She has around 1.9 million views on her TED Talk, has spoken over 14 countries. She's also been a keynote speaker for over 36 years and has impacted 3.5 million lives, and is also the number one best-selling author. So I'm definitely positive she might be a 5 or 6 figure speaker for sure. So if you like to get recoded, please book your discovery call and reach out to Dr. Amanda. You should be able to find the link under the event notes or the show description. I appreciate you guys patiently, being here, listeners, all my 43, 44 listeners. I know you guys may have questions which you like to ask Carla. I'm thinking, Carla, we may have to do like a part two, because because you're offering so much information and I'm not able to finish my questionnaire. Like, I have so many things I want to ask you. I think we have to do a part two. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm just going to ask you just a few more questions and we'll open up the floor for Q&A. So people who have been patiently listening to us for the past 40 minutes, you are invited to come up on stage. We'll have a few people and directly ask Carla whatever your doubts are, and we'll sort those things out. So if you're interested, please start raising your hand. I'll start inviting you up. And why we are actually doing this, Carla, my next question to you is about behind the scenes. Okay, now this is one of my personal question. Could you give us insights into what happens behind the scenes aspect, being a speaker, such as preparation process, managing logistics, handling travel, unexpected challenges during an event? Can you give us insights what's happening there?
Sure. So have a lot of thoughts on this. I'll say my first thought is I am a stickler for preparation. Even my signature talks that I have delivered, you know, 30, 40, 50 times, I will practice those as if I'm on stage 8 to 10 times before I hit the stage. That audience is there to deliver value, and I need to make sure that when they leave, that they know that that was time well spent. The other thing is, we talked a little bit about working with event organizers. I always have a pre-call with my event organizers to understand, okay, here's the content. What words, phrases are going to resonate with your audience? What experiences are they having right now, both positive and negative, that could impact my talk? And what, maybe there's some specific language triggers that is going to resonate with them more. So for example, I shared that I lead our journey management work at Align.org. And many times I refer to people managing the project as project managers. I did a change leadership talk and they said this group actually calls them program organizers. So, saying project managers isn't going to connect with them. And that's so helpful. You wouldn't think that small language changes are going to make a big difference, but they do. So think for a minute when somebody mispronounces your name. How does that feel? It's not near as connecting as if they take the time and the moment to learn how to pronounce your name correctly. So it's using those words that are going to connect with them. The other thing that I do is I always create digital takeaway guides. It's either a summary of the key points and action steps that they're going to need to take. It might be, depending on the talk, journaling prompts for them to go away and work on. It may be, I've got a talk that is called Speaking with Confidence, Tips for Ambitious Women and Their Allies. And there's 100 tips inside there on small changes women can make that help them to be seen and heard at work. And so I always give them a valuable digital takeaway. That is so good for my audience because I don't then have to worry about covering every little detail, and they don't have to sit there and take notes like crazy. And I include my contact information in there so that if somebody wants to contact me about a future event, I make it easy for them to do that. When we start thinking about our prep and logistics, I always fly in the day before. That way, if there's any kind of a delay or cancellation, I can still get there. When I get to the hotel, I find my meeting room. If the meeting room is not in the hotel, I'm taking an Uber to the location because I don't want to be confused or worried the day of. And then that's, of course, when I text a meeting organizer to let them know I've arrived, I found my room. And then one more thing that I'll share in terms of advanced prep is I bring everything I'm going to need in case the event or the event organizer has some kind of an error on their side. So I'm going to bring my computer. I use a Mac, so I'm going to bring an adapter in case for some reason their slideshow doesn't land, right? I also bring a thumb drive with my presentation on it so I can pop it in their computer if they can't find it. I bring my own clicker to advance the slides. I bring my own speaker intro written out and the font large so that I can hand it to the person that's going to introduce me in case they've forgotten their copy that I've sent in advance. So I am super, super prepared. And that way, if something does go wrong, I've got more flexibility to recover.
You know what? When you actually hear these things, you sound exactly like me. Like, I also prep things up, being ready for the worst before we get into something. Like, expect the unexpected.
Yes.
Things can come crashing down, guys. And if it comes crashing down, do not worry. I have got my back and I have everything ready. And simple things, like who thinks of carrying like a USB drive? Who thinks of, thinking of clickers, your speaker intro sheet, or bringing your laptop with you? Like most people would get into the event and let's say there is some technical issues. It's gonna disturb the whole vibe, and it's gonna disconnect the audience and you would not feel that you were able to do something transformative. So that actually shows a lot of qualities I feel a 5-figure speaker should have. The interesting part is nobody has raised their hands so far. Thank you so much, guys, for doing that. I'm going to continue with this conversation because I want to ask her some tough and challenging questions now. Okay, so my next question, Carla, is that I've noticed that sometimes you have a tough audience like the one which you have right now. Okay, tough audience. They don't. Just challenging, like very hard. So, what strategies do you employ personally to maintain control and professionalism in such a situation, and able to still engage with such audience, even though if they are tough and hard?
Yeah. So usually it's not the audience that's hard. You might have one or two people in the audience that um, want to be challenging. And sometimes I'll see that happen in a couple of different ways. One is, the crossed arms and the look and the rolling of the eyes that I just ignore and I focus on the people who are engaged. Now you're going to have people that shout things out that don't agree with you or have questions, or when the time comes to come to the mic, they're going to ask questions in a very challenging way. And typically the way this starts is with a long story about why they think you're wrong in what you've presented. And they kind of get to a question, but not really. They mostly are trying to show that, what you have presented is not accurate. Right. And to kind of throw you off your game when you're on the stage, and it's going to happen. So a couple of tips for you there. Remember, your bigger audience knows that this person's being difficult. Like, don't get all caught up in the heart racing and feeling like, oh my gosh, what does the audience think? They're on your side and they know that this person is being difficult. And then answer the question directly, very concisely, and don't fall into their trap of trying to force you into a box. It's okay to simply look at them and say, that simply hasn't been my experience. Let's move on to the next question, right? You don't have to validate or argue with them. Or you can say, what you're bringing up is an area that I'm simply not an expert in. and leave it at that. Then move on to the next question. When it comes to the long-winded story that kind of wraps around, I'll typically at the end say something like, I understand the context. Can you please tell me what your question is? And then answer that very directly and move on to the next person. These are the strategies that I've used that have worked very well for me.
All right, so that's really nice tip. So at any moment of time, have you ever experienced that the audience is simply not engaging? You said, it could be just one or two individuals. I'm just saying, no response. They look half dead. No motivation. Nothing. Have you come across something similar? Like, let's say that they have given you a slot, and maybe it's not the first slot, maybe it's towards the end of the event, and you would find people generally drained. Have you encountered anything of that sort?
Sure. And I haven't encountered it to the level that you're describing. I have certainly encountered where that dip happens in the energy level in the room. And I'll share with you, Jason, as a speaker, to me, that's just really hard because I feed off the energy in the room. And so when it's coming, I'm giving. It's coming, I'm giving. When I'm give, it is exhausting. And so I notice it more quickly when I'm like, wow, like this feels hard. So a couple of tips is asking those engaging questions. So ask questions and pause. Ask people to raise their hands. Another thing that I do is unless I'm in a room of, I'll say probably 300 to 500 people, I'll just get off the stage. I'll just walk down on the side steps and out into the audience. They're sitting down anyway, so they can still see you. And now I'm here, I'm one of you, and engagement tends to go up.
That is super cool. Assuming you have a wireless mic, then please utilize that to roam around. If not, then please stay within that bandwidth. Okay, but those are some great points,
Yes.
Carla. I appreciate you
And I
sharing
would
that.
say always ask for the lavalier. You don't want to be tied to that podium. You want to, even if you aren't going to lead the stage, you want to walk the floor, look at the different areas of the room, and get away from that podium. That is an inhibitor to engagement.
Awesome, awesome. I like that. We have somebody on stage. So I know you are fairly new, Rod, to my podcast. I just want to let you know that we are recording this conversation as we speak. By you being here, asking questions, you legally give me permission to go ahead, repurpose, reuse it, and probably make money out of it, through this podcast episode. So if you do give me consent, please let us know what is your question, or is there anything you like to contribute to this conversation?
Okay, first of all, Jason and Carla. Carla, thank you very much. My name is Rod Sloan. I'm calling from London, England. And I think some of your tips have been wonderful. I like the tip about calling yourself a professional speaker, even though you may not think you're there at the moment. What I'm intrigued at, and I'm sure a few other people are, is what are your 2 or 3 top ways of actually getting gigs? I presume you work through speaker bureaus, but apart from that, what are the couple of best ways you find to get business in 2023, and how is that changing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't use speakers bureaus. I'm actually not a big fan of using what I'll say is a traditional speakers bureau. So a couple of ways that booking engagements has been successful for me. One is submitting calls for speakers. So doing that work by going into Google, searching calls for speakers and applying for events that I have an interest in. That's one way. My most successful way of booking gigs is through relationships and referrals. So reaching out to contacts in LinkedIn, asking if they have employee resource groups or events coming up that I can support them in. People that I know well. I'm not talking about those, cold call direct messages, which to me don't work well. And then asking for referrals from events that I've spoken at before. Sometimes all we have to do is ask. And that is the thing that makes them go, oh, yes, I would like to connect you with this other person. Starting a new service here in the last quarter of the year, new business called the Speakers Connection with a very good friend of mine who is an event organizer, where we're actually going to make those connections between event organizers and speakers, still getting that off the ground. But really doing an excellent job for the audiences that you have, touching base with them periodically to see what additional support you can provide them, and asking for referrals along with some outreach and calls for speakers would be my recommendation versus going through a traditional speakers bureau.
All right, so Rod, you're welcome to ask a follow-up question if you have one.
Yes, Carla, how long did it take you to become, quote, what you call an expert in your subject matter? Was that something you were deep in already, or was it something you developed quite aggressively when you decided to become a professional speaker?
I think that's still evolving for me, right? It's a journey, and I learn more and more every day. I think when you step on the stage, you need to be an expert in that field. That's what they're paying you for. And every person on this podcast call with us has an area of expertise that they could tease out some steps, some tips that are actionable, that are going to help the person who's just one step behind you in that transformation to get to where you are. And I think that's the thing with expertise that people forget. We think, oh, we'll be an expert when we get to this, place that I'm looking at down the road, when there are so many people behind you that just want to get to where you're at. And so when we can help them with that stepwise journey, that's the transformation I'm talking about. And when you step on the stage to do a keynote or to deliver a workshop, you bring that expertise with you at that time. And sure, you're going to continue to evolve as your career and your talk and your profession evolves.
All right, so Rod, does that answer your question, or is there anything else you'd like to ask Carla before we move to Leslie? All right, so let's move ahead with Leslie. Leslie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. So nice to see you. And Carla, I want to, just make sure that you meet Leslie. She's a very, very close friend. She's an upcoming speaker. I love her to death. I love what she's doing. And so, Leslie, do you have a question? Anything interesting you'd like to ask Carla about public speaking?
Yes, yes, great, great, amazing guest, Carla. This is just so interesting. I do have a question. My question is, as I'm growing and evolving and really getting into more corporate public speaking engagements, and like you said, the building up the relationships, the rapport of, finding people that you already have a connection with, and that's somebody locally where I landed this incredible situation where I'm in the midst of creating a proposal, because now not only do they want me to, there was a silent auction that they bid on for an hour lecture. Now they want to take it to the next level, and they want to really have me on board, having monthly net lectures for health and wellness over the next several months. So I guess,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. And my questions, concerns, like you were saying, the salt and pepper shaker, justifying
Yeah.
throwing that out there. I don't want to undercut myself, and yet it's the strategy of, okay, where do I put myself when it comes to um, proposing certain pricing and justifying that, creating maybe like a 3 hour proposal for so many months. I'm still trying to figure out how to attack and approach this in a way that I know that they do have the funds, and yet I I'm just trying to justify where I stand. So that's my question. I graduated with my bachelor's, really working trade shows for Masco Corporation, then raising kids, and then getting back in the field over the last 5 years. So I have a little bit of background and experience. So what are your thoughts? Thank you.
Can you be really clear for me on what question you'd like for me to answer in that in that context? Because I heard a couple different ways my response could go. So what would help you most?
I guess what would help me most is if they wanted to take me on as an independent contractor speaking on a monthly basis, what is the best way to approach a proposal for a corporation?
So I would, I don't know if you have Canva or not, but there's some really good proposal templates out in Canva. You can make it look really professional by using that with the free version. It depends on what it is they're looking for. So if it's a 1 hour talk on health and wellness, make it a bundled package. My typical advice for women is think about what would you be happy with? What would be a stretch amount that you would bid on? Sit for that with that for a moment in that bundled package. And once and if you like have a little bit of trepidation on it, that's perfect. Now double it, because most women completely undervalue themselves in both the speaking market and in their corporate careers. So whatever number came to you, if you thought, oh, I'd be happy with 2,500, and I think I could ask for that, double it, sister. And then have the conversation with them. I'm not suggesting it's 5, I'm just giving you an example. And ask the meeting organizer to have a conversation with you. And you can say something like, my typical package for this type of an event would be in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. Curious to get your thoughts on, would you be comfortable taking that forward to your team? And if not, let's talk about some value exchange so that we can make this a package you are comfortable with. So that would be my pricing guidance.
I love it. And I think you just hit it right on the nail on the head with we undervalue ourselves as women. And it's still, even in the US, we shortchange ourselves. And I'm bringing a lot of value and years of research and education and just my background to the table. So I think when I kind of think that way and justify that, that will reinstill like, it's okay, Leslie, you can put that in the package. So
That's
thank
right.
you very
Salt and
much.
pepper,
I
baby.
appreciate that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Salt and pepper, baby. Salt and pepper. This is salt. This is pepper. My 3 months package is $7,000 or whatever you land on.
Yeah, I like to also ask you, Carla, what advice would you give to people like the moment they throw in this amount or say this amount, and immediately you hear pushback from the opposite person? Let's say the organizer is saying, that's too much, I'm so sorry, that's too high. And they try to
Yeah.
discount themselves. We are habitual just to be accommodating as individuals, right? So we throw out a figure, let's say $6,000, and immediately the person says, that's too much. I can do it for 3,000. What would you recommend in such situation? Like, how can we be quiet and just process it? Or what should we do in those cases?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on each person's individual situation. I'll tell you what I see happens more often than not. We don't pause. So, we might say my 3 month package is $7,000. Oh, and you know what? If that's too much, let me know. I mean, I can be flexible. Da, da, da. Now you have completely destroyed your ability to negotiate, because it's now going to be, down to the highest bidder. So share your price, pause and be quiet. And then ask the question, is that within your budget? And if they say it's really not, it's too high, I'm so sorry, that's not what we were anticipating, you've got a choice to make. Do you want to take it for a lower amount? Is it worth it to you? Is for a variety of different reasons? Or do you want to hold to that price? And if you want to hold to the price, hold to the price. If you want to negotiate, then, begin having the conversation around, well, talk to me about what is in your budget. And let's talk about some additional value that could help us get to an agreement where this is going to work for both of us. I gave you an example early on. I leave town, I'm going to get $9,000, and I'm going to get in the car and do a gig for $1,000 because it's local, because it's an audience I have a lot of passion around and care about, because this is a newer organization. And to be quite candid, there's no barrier to me going and making the extra $1,000. So I get to decide that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm with you. I have one final question. related to the interview, and I have just another question also, since we don't have too many people on stage. As you see the world of speaking, it's kind of constantly evolving on a day-to-day basis. Could you share a glimpse into the future of public speaking and predict how technology, social trends, and other factors can shape the industry and the impact this journey would have on five-figure speakers?
Yeah, I'd love to do that, Jason. First of all, I think we're going to see hybrid events just disappear. We may have a few here and there, but typically what happens is if you have in person and virtual, it's not a stellar experience for either. And more, I'm seeing a really strong focus on this is an in person event or this is a hybrid event. So I think that's one thing that you'll see. We'll still have virtual events, but I think we'll start to see less of these hybrid events. The other thing, and this is happening today, and I believe you're going to continue to see this as a strong trend in the speaking world. The gap between the specialty speaker and the general speaker is going to get even wider. And what I mean by that is when you're a specialty speaker and you are tightly niched down in who your target audience is and what you deliver, you can command a much higher speaking fee. You will be more in demand for that group, and other general groups will still pull you in here and there. So I'll give you an example. If you are a leadership speaker, you do keynotes on leadership, that is broad and general, and you're a commodity. If you are a speaker for women leading in nuclear engineering, you are specific, you are niche down, they will pay you more, and it'll be easier to connect with your audience. And I think that gap is going to continue. So if you think about like your house, right? If your roof has a problem, you can hire a handyman who's going to come in and do a job, and you're going to pay him a certain amount of money, or you're going to hire an expert roofer. You're going to pay a whole lot more for that expert roofer to come in and fix your roof. And the same thing is true in the speaking world. And I think that gap in the speaking fee that you can command is going to get even wider here as we go forward.
I really like what you said. Thank you so much for sharing that. I had no idea hybrid events will disappear. I personally like in person events. I'm a big fan of that. Because I think the connection is much more strong. I used to watch a lot of TED videos, the ones which were remote, right? And it was never effective. I did not get the same vibe as how would you feel watching things in person. So I want to welcome Jane. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. I appreciate this very, very much. Do you have a question for Carla, or would you like to contribute to this conversation?
Looks like Jane's off mute, but I can't hear you, Jane.
Yeah. Jane, no audio. I have no idea what's happening. Or while you're trying to, probably you can leave the space and come back, or just check if the headphones are connected properly or no. Just do that. And while we're actually waiting, Carla, I wanted to ask you, when you send me your bio, there's something very interesting which I noticed. It's about the biggest influence and inspiration you had in your life, and you highlighted it. It was your parents. So I'm just asking, like, how. And I like those individuals who say my parents and not an author or somebody out there like that. So how did your parents support you and help you, and why are they such a big inspiration to you?
So yeah, my mom and dad, first of all, I had amazing parents. I lost them both within the last 2 years. And they were a huge gift in my life. I'm 61 years old. Most people don't get there to keep their parents that long, nor do they always have the experience of amazing parents. So couple of things. They always told me I could do anything, to the point that I entered the workforce, in a corporate capacity in the early 80s, 1980s. And I had no idea that for women, there would be fewer doors, that it was going to cause me to get paid less than my male counterparts or hold me back in any way. I actually didn't figure that out. until I was in my 30s and kind of started looking around, and I started hearing, because we didn't talk about it a lot in the 80s. And I started hearing about this pay gap and this glass ceiling. And I'm like, what is going on here? Right. Because I never even had a moment's thought that I couldn't do just anything that I wanted to do. And they were encouraging in that way in anything I ever wanted to do in my life. My mom was very entrepreneurial. She had several little businesses. I always said if she was growing up today, she would be a multi-million-dollar rock star. In her mid 70s, she saw that I was doing Udemy courses and she said, I could do that. And I said, yes, you could. So she has, I think, 13 Udemy courses that are on cooking. She's got a YouTube channel that continues to gain traction. I always say my mom's not even alive anymore and she's kicking my butt on YouTube. And that is the absolute truth. So my parents always knew that we are capable of anything in this life. We just have to take the steps to get there. And then the other thing, and this is specific to my mother, is the importance of finding joy and happiness in every day. So even in her worst days when she was sick and had lost my dad, she would look at me when I'd walk in the house and say, so, child, what are we going to do today to have some fun? Because we have to find a way to have fun every day. So I think when you have influences like that in your life, you grow up knowing that anything is possible, that happiness is a choice, and that we can all take those small steps that lead us to where we want to be.
That is so incredible, Carla. I really, really appreciate you sharing it. And sometimes we, as individuals, we forget what our parents do to support us and to help us out. So I appreciate you sharing all those beautiful things about your parents. I want to just quickly make an announcement that I see Trinette, you've been raising your hand for quite some time. I'm trying to bring you up, but I think LinkedIn is not giving me the option to do it. I would recommend you to leave the space and join back again. I think that would enable me to bring you up. I suppose. I think it could be some sort of an error. So we have two other individuals, and I would welcome you to net, but I'm not gonna do any Q&A. I'm not gonna bring anybody else up because we are in a time crunch at this moment. So let me get back to Jane quickly. So Jane, are you audible? Let's hear your audio out. You there? Interesting. Can you hear her, Carla? Or is it just me?
No, I cannot.
All right. So
No.
so Jane, it's probably your audio settings. So click on the three dots and go to audio settings, and you can choose the headphone and the microphone you're using. That usually resolves this. I'll circle back to you. In the meanwhile, I see Eli who joined the conversation. Welcome. I see that you're new. Just want to let you know that this conversation is being recorded. Do you have a question, or would you like to contribute to this conversation? Eli, are you there? Oh,
Eli, you're on mute.
yeah, you're on mute.
Oh,
You
he's
left.
gone.
All right. So let's actually, Jane, can you hear? I still can't hear her. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening. So, but we want to be respectful of Carla's time. So, Carla, let's actually do some fun thing. Okay, let me. Let's do some rapid fire questions. Let's let people know the fun side of who Carla is. So I have some funny questions. Okay, and I'm going to ask you those questions and you let me know. So my first question to you is that did you ever had an epic fail moment during a speaking gig and that turned out to be a valuable lesson or a hilarious memory?
This one's awful. So yeah, and it's gonna go it's gonna go to one of your other questions about the wardrobe malfunction question. So I was doing a large talk on a big stage, and when I got the pictures back later, I had worn a black sweater with some white undergarments, and the way that the light shone, it looked like I just had the undergarments on with like some little white thing on or black thing on top of it. And I was horrified. And then I just kind of laughed about it and thought, oh, well, things happen. And so, note to self, black undergarments with black tops is a really good idea when you're going to be under the spotlight.
I'm really sorry. I'm not laughing at you, but I'm laughing at the situation. Do you
It's
recommend?
okay.
Do you
I laughed
recommend?
about it.
Do you
Yeah.
recommend any sort of wardrobe you would recommend to speakers when they are actually going on stage? What would you suggest is the best?
Yeah, I do. And this is going to go primarily to the women in the room. Don't wear a dress. You can wear a skirt and a top or pants. And the reason is you're going to have a mic crew hook you up, and it's much easier if they have a waistband to hook that lavalier pack to in the back. And it just makes it much easier to manage while you're getting your walking mic set up. And then the other one is just make sure that your skirts are below the knee, because sometimes you're going to be on a raised stage with people rather close. So that just helps you not have to worry too much about how closely you get to the end of the stage. The other thing, and this is for everyone, I always reach out in advance to the event organizer and ask them what color the curtain is going to be behind me, because you don't want to look like a floating head. If they've got a navy blue curtain, you don't want to wear a navy blue outfit. Or if they've got a black curtain, you want to wear something bright so that you're going to stand out against that background. So that's just a couple of tips on wardrobe.
That is super cool. I appreciate you sharing those tips, especially for women. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, my next question is, if you could give a humorous TED talk, not the one which you gave, okay, this would be your second TED talk, but a humorous one on a completely ridiculous or bizarre topic, what would you choose and why?
So this is probably not the answer you're looking for, Jason, but I am not a funny speaker. I think comedians are brave, and my hat is off to them, but stand-up comedy or funny talks are not for me. Now, having said that, I will infuse a little bit of humor and get the audience giggling on a few topics. I think that's really important in talks, but I would not be the humorous speaker of choice.
You know, this itself is a nice title, like how not to be a funny speaker. Maybe you can speak on that. So,
Ah, I don't know. I'll tell you what I don't think works
uh huh.
when it comes to comedy. I don't think canned jokes work very well. I don't think trite comments work very well. And I've seen speakers try to do that. I think what works well in terms of humor is more interaction, or then sharing the things that you've experienced that you didn't do well, like I did about my wardrobe malfunction. Kind of, it's a funny moment, we giggled about that together, and it's about me and my mistakes. It doesn't make anybody else feel uncomfortable as if I'm speaking about them or something that they've done. So, and it's not self-deprecating humor. I don't like that either. It's more sharing kind of funny experiences from mistakes that I've made. That would be more the type of humor that I would infuse in my talks.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's so incredible because as I'm progressing, the more I keep you asking you things, the more you come up with interesting things to respond back to, and I find it super cool. So in my books, you are definitely an incredible speaker, and you know what you're doing. So I really love and admire what you do and what you bring to the table. I am very, very appreciative of you sparing your 90 minutes today and educating all of us how what it feels like to be a five-figure speaker. So I'm very, very happy to have this conversation. I want to give you the opportunity to promote your business. So, do you have any sort of events, engagements, promotions, anything you like to promote on my show, or any call to action for today?
Well, I appreciate that, Jason. Thank you so much. I mentioned a couple of times the Get Paid from the Stage program, so I'll share a little bit about that. That is a 6-week program where I walk speakers through a process of creating their speaker package through some curated templates that we use. We do use Canva. A lot of the things that we've talked about and so much more, we really dig into deep. So it is a 6-week program. It's an hour and a half on a Saturday for 6 consecutive weeks, where I share with you tips and tricks and guides, and we get more into the pricing area. There is a week in week 5 where there's homework every week where you submit calls for speakers. I curate over 100 opportunities for you to submit your calls for speakers. And that 6-week package, I do this 3 times a year. The next time it happens, starting June 17th, is $2,500 US. I lock it down to no more than 10 people in the cohort. And when I do it next time in October, the price does go up to $3,200. I've kept it at $2,500 for quite some time. I don't ever run specials or deals on my program because I wouldn't feel good about signing up for a program and then finding out someone else, got a special promotion and was paying less. And I also know the value of the program, which realistically it should be well north of 5,000, probably closer to the 8 to 10,000 place, and I'll probably move it there over the coming 1.5 to 2 years. So if anyone's interested in that, LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. I'm happy to send you the link. I've got 9 seats open, a handful of people that are looking at signing up. And again, it does start on June 17th and it runs for 6 consecutive weeks. Last time it'll be offered for $2,500.
I appreciate you sharing that. I just want to let people know that the link to the Carla's 6-week program, Get Paid from the Stage, the website link is already listed under the event notes
Oh, perfect.
as well as the show description. You should be able to find it very easily. I also have a LinkedIn profile and her Instagram profile all listed up. I'm just wondering, Carla, have you thought of, maybe getting everything combined or have like a brand build up around Carla Howard? Because I see that your website has Sparkle Rise community. I'm not trying to put you in the corner by saying this, and your LinkedIn profile has like a different name, and then your Instagram profile has Rise Sisters. So don't you think that causes
Yep.
confusion? Like,
I think it probably does. And I do have a lot going on. Plus, I've got my Align Org corporate position as well. So there's a lot going on in the background. We are building a site, the Speakers Connection, that will hold the program in the coming months, along with our Speaker Connection service. I've got really multiple sides to my business. And so supporting kind and ambitious women to dream bigger and reach further is really where the Rise Sisters and the Sparkle and Rise work is happening. And so I've segmented it out by audience, and you'll find different messages, different branding with the different platforms. I think at some point, yes, that's going to make sense for me. I am shutting down a couple of the brands, so I'm kind of in the middle of that right now.
yeah, no worries, no worries. I appreciate that. I just wanted to put it out there. I was not trying to corner you or anything. Just wanted to let the audience know that these are actual URLs to the right person. Don't worry.
Yes.
If you could leave my listeners with one thing they can take away from this whole conversation we just had for about 90 minutes, what would that be?
That one thing is whatever it is that's on your heart to do, you can achieve that thing. I think so many times, we look at other people that are doing the thing that we want to do, whatever that is, and it feels so far away. Um, just take those small steps every day, small steps in the right direction. And remember, what you see is not often the reality of what someone else's experience is. Just take a moment to think about 3 years from now, what do you want your life to look like? What is that dream that you have on your heart? And keep that really close and tight, and take those steps every day. And remember what my mom said: what are we going to do to have fun today? Always take that moment to find joy in your day. It's a gift.
Absolutely. Every day is an amazing gift. That is very, very incredible. I wanted to actually let people know about the next event. So next event, my show is actually done every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the next week's show will be on May 31st, and the title of that event is Brands Do Not Create Culture, People Do, with Gary J. Nix. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. You should be able to find details to the next event under the event notes only on LinkedIn. If you're not able to find that, go into my profile, look at the featured section, and you should be able to find it. On that note, I personally wanted to thank Carla and all the amazing 27 listeners listening to our conversation till the very end. I really, really appreciate your love and support. Please do give Carla a follow. Please give me a follow. If you do like my show, I have the links to my podcast under the event notes. Please follow the show. Take advantage of it. Listen to some of the previous episodes. Enjoy. You guys take care of yourself. Have an amazing morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're in the world. Thank you. Thank you, Carla, for being such an amazing guest.
Thank you, Jason. This was fun.